Mhm.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Sunday morning Joe and Joe weather show on the 27th of February, 2022. And it's a very quiet weather Sunday indeed, as there's very little weather going on, but there's always things to look at. And Joe Rayo and I will dig deep because we actually have to dig pretty deep to find it. But there actually are a couple of interesting things going on in the longer range, and we'll take a look at that and much more. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show, as always, is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, your go-to place for making sure your home is clean or business is clean and safe on the outside during this winter season, which is down to its last handful of weeks. So they still got plenty of salt, sand, Pelado, mag, ice pellets, and flakes and de-icer. They're at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. And of course, as only Joe Rayo can do it, the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Joe, I was getting worried because as of 2 minutes ago, we had all of 17 people watching,
ah
and all of a sudden now, as you were doing the Omni sponsorship, we've jumped up to 34.
yeah.
So,
It's that kind.
people,
No, it's
so
that kind of a
people,
day.
people know that 11 o'clock on Sundays is Joe time, so to speak. But I'm hoping that we'll get a decent. But as I said to you before we came on, what are we going to talk about? I mean, even my snow squalls, which I was promoting late last week, even that looks like it's gone by the wayside. It doesn't look like much of anything to talk about for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, for goodness sake, days.
Right. There are a couple of things though happening in the long range that are interesting. Whether that winds up leading into something down the road, I don't know. Uh, Before we get going, just want to say up front. Uh, Obviously, we all know what's going on with respect to what's happening in Europe with the Ukraine, um, and I just want to say that we always like to keep this show as a place where people can go to have a distraction. And I've been watching all the coverage. I'm sure a lot of people are watching all the coverage. So as best we can, let's try to keep this as a distraction. Joe, the only thing I would say is what came to mind, and I'm going to try to inject a little levity in all of this, but this would be the moment where, uh, if you were in the middle of news coverage, your news director and someone from sales would come downstairs and say, Joe, guess what? We just sold a sponsorship called Weather and the Apocalypse, and we want you to come up with something to go along with that. But am I right though? This is
Uh,
what they would do.
I Yeah, the society is. I think a lot about. I think a lot about a show which some of you may remember, not necessarily all of you. It was called Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and it was back on NBC a long, long time ago. And they used to do the news of the future. And I must tell you, Joe, that if we were able to, use the stuff that we're dealing with now and go back 50 or 60 years and showed it to the writers at Laugh-In, they would probably laugh and say, well, this is going over the top. Certainly this couldn't because they used to. I remember there was one particular episode on Laugh-In where they did news of the future and they said President Ronald Reagan, and everybody was falling on their floor, laughing like the very thought of thinking that Ronald Reagan could be president. But it happened. And now to show what's happening in our lives now to people 50 years ago, they wouldn't believe it. They just would not believe it.
No,
I
truth is
don't think.
always look. Truth is
So,
always stranger than fiction. And yeah, sometimes it is funny how people will react, and then suddenly that reality comes to be 10 or 20 years later, and you just think back and say, whoa, what was I thinking then, and was I thinking now? So look, let's keep everything as a distraction today, so you can get away from it for a little while. Because for the 33 folks that are here, I'm assuming that that's why they're here. But anyhow, uh,
We're up to
So
55 now, so
okay, so good. So let's
slowly but surely it's starting to rise.
right. So let's look at what's happening, and it's not unusual. The atmosphere always likes to take a bit of a breather, and after an active or a semi-active or at a time when maybe things are being rearranged. But that's kind of where we are right now. That doesn't. There are moments where we had this happen back not too many weeks ago, where we sort of went into the same thing. I think maybe it was at the end of January, the first couple of days of the first week or so of the month of February, where it suddenly got quiet and then it revved up again. So this is how it looks on the watches and warnings. So except for a few odd advisories that are up in upstate New York around the lakes, and that's because of this upper trough and cold front that are dropping southward. In the northwest, in northern Idaho and northern Washington state, I think they even have a winter storm warning on the east side, on the other side of, not where Seattle is, but on the other side of Seattle because there's mountains there. So they got winter storm warnings up there. And a couple of counties, looks like 5 counties in South Texas have dense fog advisories. And that's it. We really don't have much else happening. A little bit of cold and wind chill up in Maine and northern New England, a little bit of wind in 2 counties up in Montana, and 2 other small counties down in, well, nothing small in Wyoming. 2 other counties in Wyoming where they have wind issues. But that's it, Joe. It's one of those stretches where the atmosphere just breathes and things relax.
Yeah, and as I mentioned at the very beginning of our show today, I had good feelings that we might be looking at least some snow shower or maybe even a few squalls around like we did last week. But in the last couple of days, all of the computer guidance models have been pulling away from that. I mean, if you look, there's apparently going to be a nice, sharp, narrow line of activity that's going to be moving down from the Adirondacks, upstate New York,
You
later
could
this
see, yeah,
afternoon, and you say to
and
yourself, okay,
you could see it on the loop. There's sort of arm that's dropping southeastward, and that's also
right,
actually, by the way, there's all this rain that's running. It finally stopped raining here just a little while ago. I was able to take the dog out, but you can see all those clouds streaming up from Texas and then going east across Tennessee and Georgia and the Carolinas. That arb coming down is actually suppressing all that moisture to our south, so to the south. So you're not dealing with any kind of storm system moving up the east coast because of that the way the trough is coming down.
yep, and it looks like we've been saying quiet weather for at least the next week or so. And today, temperatures here in the tri-state area are going to actually climb all the way up to probably the middle 40s at least, and that'll be nice. And then we'll see after that weather front, that cold front moves on through this evening. We'll see us go back. It does not look, however, I know that last week we were actually talking about temperatures falling back into the 20s, even perhaps the mid and low 20s for tomorrow. Doesn't look like that punch of cold air is going to be quite as forceful. Tomorrow, it will certainly be decidedly colder than today, but temperatures tomorrow will probably be more like around 30 or low 30s instead of, that big. And that's also, I was looking at the Nam Foose. Now, last week when we had those snow squalls, the one thing that jumped out at me was that the Nam Foose last Saturday, was showing within a 6-hour time frame thicknesses dropping like 20 decameters, and the T1 boundary level temperatures falling by about 10 degrees Celsius, a very sharp decline. We see a bit of a decline with the upcoming system late today and tonight, but it's nowhere near what we were looking at last week, and that's probably why the squalls or the potential for snow showers kind of peter out by the time they come within reasonable distance of our area later today and on into this evening. Not saying that it's 100% surety that we're not going to see any snow. There will be a few spots here and there that will probably see a flurry or a snow shower or even an isolated squall for about 2 minutes. But for the most part, much of our area will probably go on through into this evening with not much more than maybe some clouds, and that's about all.
Yeah, the trough axis is along or just off the east coast right now, so that that arm that's coming down isn't particularly sharp, and when it gets sharp, it's going to be well past past the northeast anyway. So it also means that we have a northwest flow in the upper atmosphere pretty much all week. So that's going to also keep things dry. Weather systems will be relatively weak. Cold fronts will come down every couple of days with not much with them, so you'll just see these sort of temperature bounces up and down, and that really is the extent of it. And there's nothing screaming coming into from the Pacific at the moment, so it actually um, it's almost we could probably call it a late February, early March thaw that we're in a sense, because of the big cold air masses that have been coming down from Canada. They're getting deflected somewhat, and the storminess that we've had, uneven storminess, but it's been there pretty much for the last 2 months. That relaxes. Now it's not going to, obviously it doesn't stay that way forever. Eventually
Right.
it's going to transition to something else, but for the time being, as they say, old tired phrase, it is what it is, and that's what it is. So
Yes,
on
indeed.
on that particular note, we can jump to the radar. There actually is some rain going on, so we can point that out. And let's bring it up on the screen here. Whoops, that was not what my intention was. Sorry about that. Another free commercial for Omni, so we can. I don't know what happened here. Hang on a second. This is what happens when I click too quickly. There we go. Fine. Which Omni doesn't mind, by the way, and we don't mind giving them a little bit of extra time. So here's the rain this morning in North Georgia and in northern North Carolina, South Carolina, excuse me, eastern North Carolina, and covering most of the state of North Carolina, all sliding pretty much to the east. And then in upstate New York, we've got some snow showers and actually some heavier snows going on the east shores of Lake Ontario, and that's that cold front and upper trough that's dropping southeastward. Now, if you remember, Joe, you pointed out to last week. Last week at this time, when that upper trough was swinging through, we had the snow squall lines down into western PA. They're not there today. They're cutting off
Right.
just west of Syracuse to about Rochester, and that's it. So if you just kind of follow this along and extrapolate, you probably would say that maybe in central and northern New England they wind up getting some snow showers and heavier snow squalls. Maybe a snow shower extends down further southwest from there. But as far as a healthy looking squall, it seems rather unlikely at this point. Also, out in the northwest, we've got moisture coming into Washington State, spreading into parts of Oregon and western Montana, and also seeing a little bit of precip aloft in northern California, and a little bit of shower activity covering southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi. But Florida looking okay today, and the plains and the Midwest, and also up in the Rockies, the central and southern Rockies, and the Southwest, which was dealing with some snow last week. That's relaxing too. So we're all kind of enjoying a little bit of weather peace. So now here's a development that's in the long range that a few people that are into long range are talking about, and I've pulled up the 10 millibar, Joe. This is something that the GFS for the last, I would say, week or more on occasional runs has been showing. And what we're seeing here is a split in the polar vortex. And by the way, Dr. Judah Cohen tweeted about this morning, and he said that the European has actually been on top of this far longer than the GFS has. The GFS has finally seemed to pick up on the idea that we're going to see this. If you see that area of dark red, almost brown colors there, moving across northern Europe and Siberia, that is a major stratospheric warming that is being indicated here. That is very, very warm air that's coming in and attacking what is a very, very strong polar vortex for this time of year, and it actually causes it to split with an upper low that by next Saturday, according to the GFS and according to the European, is in Labrador. Now, when we get these splits, Joe, it often leads to eventually a uh, a negative North Atlantic oscillation. We saw that happen in 2018 when we had a major split in the polar
Right.
vortex. It took about two
Remember it
weeks.
well.
Yes, that took about 2 to 2.5 weeks to play through, but it did, and it set up for a very active and busy March. Now, here the split is coming. If it comes next Saturday, uh, then we're talking about maybe another go 2 weeks beyond that. So we're talking about the second half of March, maybe having some impact here from this split. What we don't know is the details here. What does it mean in terms of, okay, well, if there's blocking that's going to form, where is it going to form? Where are the troughs going to be? Where are the ridges going to be? That we can't tell you right now, but the split does indicate that there is a change here in the atmosphere. Now, interestingly enough, Joe, the polar vortex, the other half of the polar vortex strengthens. This polar vortex is unusually strong, and it winds up just eventually taking that split and just absorbing it back up on the GFS. I don't know if it also does have some troughing there that sets up in eastern Canada as we head to mid-month. Now, I don't know what the European did with this, if it holds on to the split or did something similar to the GFS where the vortex part that's over in Siberia just kind of is the dominant player here and just winds up absorbing the split low. But I would think the splitting itself would probably cause maybe a brief blocking scenario to set up. We'll have to just wait and see. That's about for you long range enthusiasts. This will be something to watch to see how it evolves, but it's by no means any kind of guarantee. If you're into winter weather if you want winter weather to be extended further, it's by no means a guarantee that that's going to happen. But it is an interesting development with regards to what's happening up in the stratosphere, because what often happens up there usually translates to something down here.
I absolutely agree. It's like the game of dominoes, except that since we're dealing with the planet that we live on, the Earth, it doesn't happen instantaneously, as you pointed out in 2018. When we saw the split, we waited about a week or two, and then things started to roll. That was the March, by the way, for those of you who do not remember, where we had not one, not two, but four nor'easters within a time span of a month, and made for a very active. And it wouldn't be surprising, if we see something, let's say by mid or late March, a change back to more wintry conditions. It has been known to happen. We've seen it happen on a number of other occasions, a number of other years. So, yeah. So think of this as nature just taking a deep breath and maybe getting ready for one last brush as we move into the latter part of the month of March.
Yeah,
one of those things, Joe.
exactly. The European upper air going forward over the next 10 days is kind of interesting in a way, in a broad sense. Nothing specific in terms of big storminess as far as I saw. But you do have, and we'll just let the model fill in here. This was the 0Z run, so it goes out to 240 hours. You'll notice that at least this is where we are right now with the upper trough, and there's no the sharpness here from earlier this week where we saw this almost V-looking trough coming in. It's a lot broader here, which is one of the reason why we're not really going hog wild on any kind of snow shower, snow squall activity out of this. That lifts out, another arm rotates around, and you can see where the trough position is all offshore, and it's hard to you can't really do much with this. The northwest flow, our cold flow from Canada is there. We do have a bit of a split here. There is a trough that's coming into the west along about Thursday, or approaching the west. Big upper high in northwest Canada, ridge that goes up the Rockies. So this is a cold flow, but we're also, Joe, at a time of year where you could be in a very cold pattern, but unless it was like, say, March of 2015, where it was unrelenting until the end of the month, you're gonna see your temperatures bounce a bit in between frontal passages. So it's not like we're going to stay in any kind of deep freeze here. This trough pulls out. You get a bit of a ridge that develops in the eastern part of the United States, but by the time we get to the end of the period, I don't know, I kind of find this a little bit interesting here. You got an upper air. Now this, I think, may lead to something down the road. Okay, we just have to we may have to wait it's more than 10 days to get there. But you've got a split flow, northwest flow coming out of Canada. You've got energy here in the Rockies and Southern Plains, a flat ridge out in the Atlantic. Uh, this, I think, maybe leads to some kind of storminess down the road, say around after March 9th or 10th, in my view. But that's a long way to look from here at February 27th.
Right. Right. Like I said, take it for what it is. The next week or so, nature again taking a deep breath, and then we'll see what happens. During the middle and latter part of March. But I think the fact that we're seeing a split, and we haven't seen the polar vortex split in a good long while. But again, we all remember what happened the last time it did split. All of a sudden, the weather, which was very quiet, got very active, and it would not be surprising if it happened again. So maybe not until the second week of March. Well, not the second week. The first week, okay, quiet. Second week, transitioning from quiet to maybe the beginnings of an active cycle. And then during that third week, the 14th through the 21st, oh my goodness, that also includes the official start of spring. It wouldn't be surprising if we suddenly went back to a winter pattern just in time when everybody was, starting to get excited about, things getting nice and warm and the climate easing out or whatever. Yeah, it would seem that that may very well be a possibility here for later in March. So we'll.
So, as far as the surface is concerned, we've got the new GFS, which is out to 168. And the rain to the south goes out, the squalls to the north go out, and the snow showers go out. Cold high builds in. Here we come on Tuesday. A little low moves across the lakes. Very little moisture available. The Atlantic is shut off, and the Gulf of Mexico is shut off. So we get another weak cold front that comes by. A secondary front, Joe, looks like it wants to come through here probably on late Wednesday. And then a colder high builds in. And actually, there's a little streak of snow that comes down from the plains, a very narrow band here. It's like a stick, a long stick from the Dakotas all the way to West Virginia. There's a little trough there that brings some snow to Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula, which has been one of the jackpot zones this winter. That goes out underneath. Meanwhile, in the west, we're getting some energy coming in along about, actually starting this afternoon, just starting now into the northwest, spreading some rain and some snow, but not enough to put up any kind of watches or warnings. And then we've got a low there in Colorado, and you can see where the isobars are pointing next weekend. They're pointing up to Minnesota and Wisconsin. So that low goes to our west. And that's all we have so far, out 7 days. We get probably some rain next Saturday night and Sunday. I don't know. And then that goes out. And again, we're only out to 180 hours here. So low pressure, a new system there around March 7th with rain in Oklahoma and in eastern Kansas and western Missouri, and snow up in Nebraska and back through Colorado and all the way up through the northern Rockies and even along the coast of the Pacific Northwest. So there's probably some troughing out there in the western part of the U.S. And maybe a bit more in the way of ridging in the east. But I don't know. It's if you're looking for something to happen over the next 10 days as far as being a snow lover is concerned, it really doesn't look, it's not going to happen. We're going to have to, you're going to just pretty much have to bide your time and then think that maybe that split in the polar vortex leads to something for the middle and latter part of the month, which is, it's a tough thing to do, right, Joe? If in order to, after you get past, I think St. Patrick's Day, I used to use the 15th, the Ides of March, but that once you get past the 15th to the 17th time frame, the normal temperatures are rising 1 degree every 3 or 4 days. So by the time you get to the end of the month, and we were talking about this earlier, North Carolina snow. If it does wind up snowing in the second half of March, it's what I always refer to as North Carolina or Georgia snow, where it snows, it accumulates. You hope it happens at night if you're a snow lover, because once you get into the day side, it disappears pretty quickly.
Right, absolutely. And as I said before we got on the air, I said, you wait, we'll have the April blizzard. And I said, we'll get 10 or 15 inches of snow. And that's the kind of snow that I don't particularly mind getting, because you know that within a day or two, it's all going to be gone because of the much higher sun angle. Although, Joe, and I've been noting on the chat board, people have been talking about the blizzard of April 6, 1982, here in New York City. That was atypical because not only did we have, everybody talked about the snow, the snow, the snow, but not only did we have the snow with that storm, we had an amazing surge of incredibly cold weather. I mean, in the days following that blizzard, the temperatures were struggling to get out of the 30s. It was amazingly cold for that particular time of the year. It wasn't, as I just noted, you get some snow and then it's gone 2 days later because the temperatures pop into the 50s and 60s. It wasn't anything like that. And in fact, I remember that April snowstorm of 1982 because I remember what was leading into it. That was on a Tuesday. And on the Saturday before that storm, we had a major outbreak of very cold air that was plunging down through the northern plain states and moving into the Midwest. And on, let's see now, there's 6, 5, 4, 3. So on the night of Friday night, late on Friday night, April the 2nd, there was an incredible line of severe weather ahead of that cold front moving into Illinois and Indiana. And at that time, I was doing a radio station in Indiana, WRIN in Rensselaer, Indiana. It was one of those 500 or 1,000 watt stations that went off the air at sunset. And there was, I mean, the Rensselaer went under a tornado warning. I called the owner of the station. His name was Tom Jurek. And he's one of my Facebook friends, although I haven't heard from him in a good long while. I called him at his house, told him about the situation. Tom got dressed, jumped in his car, and he fired up the transmitter. Now, this only happens when you have a daytimer, when you have a radio station that's only on during the daytime. When you have an emergency situation like, and he assessed that this was an emergency situation, you are allowed, the FCC will allow you to turn on your radio station under the cover of darkness, is what he did. And we were on, like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, this little dinky station was on warning everybody in Rensselaer and surrounding areas about the tornadoes. The tornadoes came through. There was hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more than $1 million of damage in the community, in the town. But then that front came on through Chicago. The Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox were going to have an exhibition game at Wrigley Field that afternoon. This is Saturday the 3rd. It went from like 60 degrees in the morning to like 15 degrees in the afternoon, and it started snowing heavily. Obviously, the game was canceled. But then that front came on through our area during the day on Sunday. And then behind it, a little wave of low pressure developed over, I think, the Tennessee Valley, rippled up along that front, which was now just to our south and east. And that set the stage for the big blizzard that hit us on the 6th of April, 1982, with thunderstorms, snows, I might add. It was an incredible, and what an incredible series of weather days, all jammed into just a few days. And it all happened, again, over a span of just like 3 or 4 days, that we went from balmy spring-like weather to bam, midwinter conditions. And that was a period of weather that I certainly will not forget and have not seen the likes of in all of these years since. But
I missed
that's why
it.
we say what you're talking. Oh, that's right.
I missed it.
Were you in Corpus Christi?
I had just moved at the end of March down to Corpus Christi to start at my first television station. Yes, I missed it. I did remember calling up Alan and saying, looking at what was going on, just you're going to get it from this. This is, the way, the primitive models that we had at the time. But yeah, I missed that. I missed the blizzard of '83. That was it. But
82.
Oh, the 82, was it 82? No, I know
yes.
The April storm was in '82. I'm talking about the megalopolis blizzard of '83.
Oh, the February of '83.
I missed that one. Yeah. So yeah, I missed it. But it was, something from the standpoint of forecasting. and kind of honing my skills. It was the best thing. I've always said this, and I firmly believe it. It was the best thing that ever happened to me was to go down south and look at things as you start to, you don't have a vested interest. That I got that snow weenie out of me while I was down south. Um, but I was able to. I really was able to learn uh, how to be more objective and to take the emotion out of it. In other words, I grew up. Is what I
Yeah.
is what I did. By the way, I posted this yesterday on my weather platform, and this is the seasonal snowfall so far. As this is through February 26th, 2022, and the Weather Service put it up. I forgot which regional office put this up. But what was interesting, Joe, is if you take a look at this uh, standpoint of the total snowfalls. Now, I would like to see also one that shows, well, where's the above normal and where's the below normal, because I think that gives you a better perspective. We know that southern New Jersey, an area south and west across the Delmarva Peninsula in through Virginia, North Carolina, right down into northeast Georgia, and also into eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee. That all of that is above normal. But there's just a few interesting snow holes here. The one I would point out is the one in southeast and south central Pennsylvania, north central Maryland. And back just maybe close to the Washington D.C. Baltimore area. Now, uh, this is a hole that I've spoken about. If you look climatologically, uh, this is not uncommon in this area, which is why you might also ask folks in southeastern Pennsylvania always say, well, why does Philadelphia always miss out on this sort of stuff? Well, that's because geographically you're in a funny place. But it's interesting, Joe. Every winter there's always a snow hole someplace that areas around it wind up seeing near or above normal snowfall. But on the other hand, those snow holes play a big role.
It's funny, and the President's Day storm of 1979, where you have that snow hole on the screen right now, that would have been all orange and red because that one storm dumped like 15 to 25 inches of snow on Washington and Baltimore in a single day. That certainly was not the snow hole that particular year. I don't remember or don't recall. It might very well have been in portions of upstate New York where they had frigidly cold temperatures. I mean, Old Forge, for example, something like 53 degrees below zero. And you simply cannot have any major or significant snows when the temperatures fall to that level, that extreme of cold weather. So from year to year, you're right. There are snow holes, but again, the antithesis of what you have on the screen, 79, it was a completely different story.
So Timothy Veltman always comes to my rescue. God bless him. And he actually has found and provided for me, and I'm putting it up right now, the snowfall with respect to normal. And you'll notice that, okay, so you get into uh, the white shaded areas. Okay, white to blue is all above average. And by the way, Boston has their average snowfall now has increased to almost 50 inches a winter. Uh, when they readjusted the means, and they are now over the 50-inch mark for the winter. But you see where the above normal is. Southeastern New England, okay, to the eastern half of Connecticut and Rhode Island, coastal and southern New Jersey, down to Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula, northern Virginia, and then it just kind of you start to get patchy as you go south and west of there. But there's another big area of above normal that shows up in interior South and North Carolina, um, uh, uh, Tennessee into Kentucky, and of course wherever you see the darker reds, it's way below normal. So we're looking at below normal snowfalls in the Central Plains, the area of the Midwest, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, back to Iowa. Also in the Northeast, below normal across northern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the Hudson Valley, upstate New York, and even up into only slight below to near normal in central and northern New England. So that's how this winter played out. In the West, we see uh, some, quite a bit above normal in parts of northern California and up the coast in Oregon and Washington State. Uh, in the Southwest, patchy here and there, some places above, some places below. In Colorado, the West goes from slightly below to some areas above. In the eastern part of the state, it was mostly below. In the southern plains, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, a lot of areas showing near or above normal snowfall. But again, it's always like this. Every year, some areas, every winter, there's always a big winner and a big loser. So um, if you happen to be in the snow hole area, what can I tell you? That's just what happens sometimes.
Well, we said at the beginning of the season, I remember pointing this out, that we just came off a very wet winter, a wet summer, I should say. In fact, this was one of the 10 wettest summers here in the New York area, thanks in part to what we went through with Ida at the beginning of September. And I pointed out that because of that, we have a tendency to see below normal snowfall the following winter. In fact, out of the 10 wettest summers, 7 out of the 10 had below normal winter snowfall. And this past summer, it was number 2 on the list. And take a look at what is happening. We have about, so far, only about half as much snow as we normally would get. And this theory, or this premise that wet summers lead to below normal snow winters, well, this may work out, unless, of course, we get a major snow in March, which
Right.
certainly can happen. It
Well,
has
we're not
has
done. Yeah,
happened.
we're not done yet. I mean, we still have time. I mean, some people have already, they say we're done. What I mean by we're not done yet is that it's February 27th, so we still have a few weeks to go, and you never know what's going to pop up. So I just I'm gonna be looking for something. We'll see. If it turns out that
This
we're done, we're done. What can I tell you?
this year, I think Easter Sunday is going to be in mid-April. I think it's going to be, in fact, it is going to be on April 17th. And the next day, the 18th, we had an Easter in 1976 where it was 96 degrees. It was the hottest Easter on record here in New York. And yet 6 years earlier, Easter was on March the 29th, and we had a 4-inch snowstorm, the snowiest winter Easter on record here in New York. And up where I live, we probably had a foot of snow with that storm. That was on the 29th of March. So you could see that even late into the month of March, you can get significant snowfall. And a couple of people brought up on the chat board, Joe, April 1st, April Fool's Day, 1997, where we had up here in the Hudson Valley something like 12 to 15 inches of very heavy, very wet snow. And even down in New York, it snowed on that day. Not 12 to 15 inches, but enough to put down like a slush coating. So, yeah, we're moving into March, but it doesn't necessarily mean that winter is over. It may seem like it's over the next week or so because it's going to be very quiet. But again, split polar vortex toward the middle part of this month, well, actually during the early part of this month, which could lead to some activity later in the month. So, yeah, winter certainly is not over by a long shot, at least from this vantage point, at least from what we could see right now.
Okay. So on a Sunday where we almost broke 100 viewers. Okay.
Yeah.
We almost broke 100 viewers, but we've got 50 likes. So the ratio of likes to viewers is okay. So anyway, thanks for those of you who've hit the like button. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy the Joe and Joe Weather Show today, and we're on 5 days a week, Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Thursday at 7:30 p.m. And then we usually take Fridays and Saturdays off unless there's a storm going on. Oh, we just went over. I just said that we went over 100 viewers. So let me just show you. I'll be back in 1 second here. This is what I did this morning. So I prepared my lunch. Let me see if I can get this on the screen. It's been sitting on my top of my stove now, just kind of cooling down to room temperature. But so this is what I made today. which is my baked fried chicken. Okay,
Oh,
baked fried chicken. I'm on a baked fried chicken kick. This is the second time I've made it in 3 days. It's really easy. Just I basically use olive oil, panko breadcrumbs, uh, granulated garlic, kosher salt, and some paprika. I season it, cover the chicken, brush olive oil on the chicken so that it has the breadcrumbs have something to stick to. I put the panko breadcrumbs on, and then I bake in a 375-degree oven for 45 minutes. And then I shut the oven off and let it sit there for another 5 or 10 minutes. And that's my lunch for today, which I'm going to have as soon as we say goodbye, which I think we should do right now since, as I said, you said it's quiet. We don't have too much to talk about.
why are you doing this? Why
Why
are
am
you
I,
doing this to me?
why are you hungry?
I mean, I had a bowl of Rice Krispies before we went on, and now you're showing me this delicious, succulent chicken, and
I'm going to have it with some
oh,
spinach.
Jim.
So I also made fresh
Oh, I love
biscuits. I also made biscuits from scratch this morning. I have fresh biscuits. So I'm sorry, I'm making you suffer. I'm actually getting hungry talking about it. So look, let's say goodbye. Everybody have a great day. I know the news is front and center. Thank you for keeping it off the board today so that we can have a nice distraction. And we'll see where we are tomorrow, God willing. Had to put that in.
yes, God willing.
Because right now you don't know you don't know. So anyhow,
Anybody who's concerned about what's going on in the world today, do not repeat. Do not on Netflix or whatever service you may have to watch old movies. Do not watch the movie Fail Safe, which came out in 1964, black and white. The scariest movie I have ever, to this day, I've ever watched. Number one on my list of all-time thrillers. With and you would figure
Fonda.
that Joe, you would figure. I mean, yeah, Henry Fonda played the president, but you'd figure that a movie with key figures such as Larry Hagman and Dom DeLuise would not be a very serious picture. I can assure all of you that this is a scary, scary movie, especially as to what is going on right now. So if you want to be scared, remember there used to be a radio show back in the 40s and 50s called Suspense, which used to tell you that we're here to chill you a little, to if you want to get frightened out of your socks, watch Failsafe. But other than that, if you don't want to, considering what's going on in the world today and the thought of all of this nuclear action going on, do not watch Failsafe. And now, of course, everybody will be running to Netflix, seeing if they can find it and watch it. And anyway, there you go.
Yeah, Larry Hagman, I always said, should have gotten an Oscar nomination for that performance because it was superb. And I'm not the only one that says that, by the way. All right,
and we all think of Dom DeLuise as a big roly-poly, fat, funny man. No, not in this movie. Not in this movie. He showed off. I think I read somewhere, I forget who it was. I think maybe it was Milton Berle, who said that before you can be a comedian or before you could do stuff that you want to do, like comic material, you have to be a good actor. You have to show off your acting chops. And let me tell you, in this movie, Failsafe, Dom DeLuise shows off his acting chops. And you're not going to believe it. It's Dom DeLuise, but it is. And it was just a great, great movie. The Matador. Yes. Oh, please. All right, Joe.
All right.
We'll talk to you tomorrow night, I guess.
See you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for being here. And, see you tomorrow at 7:30. Good night, everybody. All right, good afternoon, everybody.
Nighty-night.
Nighty-night.
Good afternoon. Whatever.